we request everyone to please find your seats as we will be starting. Hello everyone. All right. Shall we all take our seats? Do find your seats because we will be starting. May now call on Tita Rose Bautista to introduce our next speaker for this afternoon.
Are we ready to listen to Bishop Ambo? Yes. So can we all take our seats now, please? Settle down. Thank you. All right, thank you. Our next speaker is not new to us, as he is also a son of Ignatian formation, having himself been formed by the Jesuits in his college days at Ateneo de Manila University, in his ministerial preparations at San Jose Seminary, and in his graduate studies at the Loyola School of Theology. He took advanced studies in sacred scriptures at École Biblique and Archéologique Française de Jerusalem. Apologies for the pronunciation. He also has a licentiate and doctorate in sacred theology, granted by the Catholic University of Louvain, Belgium. Bishop Pablo de Vir, or Bishop Ambo, as he is fondly called, took several functions before he was called to the episcopate. He was assistant parish priest in Santa Lucia Parish in Sasmuan, Pampanga. Prior to the appointment to the episcopate, he served the Mother of Good Counsel Seminary in San Fernando, Pampanga, in different capacities such as Director of the Philosophy Department, Dean of the Graduate School of Theology, and Spiritual Director in the Theology Department. He was appointed Auxiliary Bishop of the Archdiocese of Pampanga in 2016, and as a member of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, he became a member of its several commissions such as the CBCP Commission on Biblical Apostolate, Commission on Basic Ecclesial Communities, Commission on Doctrine of the Faith, former Vice Chairman of the Commission on Cultural Heritage of the Church. He also headed the CBCP Commission on Biblical Apostolate and the CBCP Commission on Cultural Heritage of the Church for 6 years and 2 years, respectively. He was appointed as the second bishop of the Diocese of Kalookan on October 14, 2015. He was elected as Vice President of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines in an election held at the Pope Pius XII Catholic Center in Paco, Manila on July 8, 2017. Friends, it is my honor to present to you one of the prophets of our modern age, Bishop Pablo, Virgilio, Magis.
Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat. I'd like to begin by apologizing for the political incorrectness of the question that is posed before you. Am I my brother's keeper? But that's because it's a quotation from the Bible, Genesis chapter 4. It was the question posed by God to Cain when he asked, "Where is your brother?" Of course, Cain said, "Am I my brother's keeper?" He had no sister then yet, so he would say, "Am I my brother or sister's keeper?" Yeah. The title of this reflection is Am I my brother's keeper? Subtitled, Bridging the Gap Between Faith and Life in a Culture of Death and Violence. Is there such a gap? Let me begin by establishing the gap. I'd like to show you a little video of something that happened just about a little more than 3 weeks ago. A killing that happened on 4th Avenue in Kalookan City in broad daylight. But we're not surprised about the killings anymore because they happen every day, you know. But this one happened in broad daylight. And something had happened already a day before that. But this thing really bothered me. I'll show you why it bothered me. Okay, now you see. These are the killers. Part of the death squad that's roaming Kalookan City. You know? So he's going to kill a tricycle driver. There he is. There is a girl. Look at that little girl over there. There. Now he pumps about 5 shots. Okay. Now he's fallen. The two are done with their task. Well, he's done with his task. And there's a follow-up. That's the follow-up. He's going to pump a few more shots to make sure he's really dead. One has gone already. The other one has accomplished his task. Now he's going. Okay, there is his motorcycle. Take note, they're like traffic policemen. They stop the traffic. Now the traffic is going to move already. There. Now it moves. Everybody was watching the killing. They all saw it. They all saw it. And now they're going to pass by the cadaver. You're going to see. There he is. Yeah. That really got me worried, you know. It started, he was killed at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's already 8 o'clock in the evening. He's still there. Nobody even bothered to cover his cadaver with a piece of newspaper or blanket. This is shocking for me because I do not come from the city, I come from the province. We have so much respect for life. It's unthinkable for us to watch a killing and then pass them by. The world would stop. We would say, what happened? What happened? And we would probably surround the dead body. And if he's not breathing, we would like to dignify him by covering him with a blanket or a piece of newspaper. But nobody cared. That bothered me. And I happen to be the bishop of Kalookan. Believe me, even the poor are beginning to develop a lifestyle of individualism. But the poor cannot afford to be individualistic because community is a matter of life and death. It's survival for them. And so I blame myself for this. I said, we're supposed to be the community builders. And you will see later on why we took a different approach to community building. Because I don't think my parishes are effective in building communities. And I don't intend to build more parishes. I'm just building mission stations to make the church present among the poor. We've established about 12 mission stations so far, and we'd like to establish about 15 more, just to make sure that in every slum community, the church is going to be present. And much of what we will be doing is really community building. Okay, let me go back to the slides now. So now you know why I'm talking about the gap. There is a very obvious disconnect between faith and societal life in this country, especially now under this government. This is going to be a two-part reflection. The first is going to be on the culture of death and violence that is beginning to prevail in this country. And the second is the reflection on bridging the gap between faith and life. Part one is how the present government promotes a culture of death and violence. I have come to believe that the government's drug war is, in many ways, even if I agree with Attorney Lavinia that we should fight illegal drugs. We agree that illegal drugs are a menace in this country, and that foremost among the victims are poor people. But I've come to the conclusion that the government's drug war, the way they're fighting it, is illegal, immoral, and anti-poor. And this is a cry for help. Because I happen to be bishop of Kalookan, Malabon, and Nabotas. That's my ecclesiastical jurisdiction. And we have probably among the largest concentrations of very poor informal settler communities. They're the ones being bullied by this government. And you know that lately they've started arresting even tambays. Parang kung kailan pa naging krimen ang tumambay, ikaw man yung tumira dun sa mga bahay ng mga squatter. You realize, kahit yung kanilang mga espinita, kusina yan, paliguan, doon din sila nagluluto, doon naglalaro mga anak nila. Yung gano'n. Hindi nga sasabihin mo, bawal tumambay. Pero yung mayaman, hindi bawal tumambay sa Starbucks. Parang, what's this? And I thought you cared about the poor. So, why do I think that they are anti-poor? Well, just check on the social status of those who are killed in so-called legitimate police operations and those killed by unidentified assailants, because there are two kinds of killings. And Attorney Lavinia told you about them. Those killed in legitimate police operations and those who are killed by unidentified assailants. Oh, come on. I won't mince words anymore. I'll just call them death squads. They're prowling the cities. So I have no name for them, so I'll just call them death squads, because that's what they're doing. They're killing everywhere. Here are the statistics as of July 2018. The police can only admit 4,500 people killed in legitimate police operations. Nanlaban. Siguro hindi Tagalog si Tony, kaya nanlaban. Sabi, it's nanlaban. They fought back. They fought back. But I have to deal with many witnesses all the time, because who do they run to if not the priests? What do you expect me to say to a penitent who says, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I saw the way they killed my neighbor." In the police report, they said, he fought back. I saw what they did. He didn't fight back. They killed him. He was handcuffed and they killed him. I saw it. I saw it with my eyes. I cannot sleep. So what do I do, Father? What do you expect us to say to that? 23,518 deaths under investigation. This is police records. Mostly killed by unidentified assailants. And the PNP can only admit about 2,668 as drug-related. The rest are generic, according to them. Generic, and that they are under investigation. And almost always, we don't get any update about the investigations. How they even come to the conclusion that 2,668 are drug-related, we don't know because they wouldn't disclose anything. They made 149,265 arrests. That is why our jails are full. Now we have to do double time with our prison ministry because the Kalookan City Jail could accommodate only 200 prisoners. Now we have 2,400. One little cell can only accommodate 20. Now every cell has 200 at least. They cannot lie down. They cannot even pee at night. So they have to carry a plastic bottle to pee in a plastic bottle. It's inhuman, to say the least. How can you rehabilitate people this way? And they claim that about 1.2 million, 1.274 million people have surrendered. What did they do to them? Well, they profiled them and put them in a drug watch list. And several of those who have surrendered are already in the statistics of either those killed in legitimate police operation or those who are listed as deaths under investigation. Why do I call this war immoral? Because it has absolutely no respect for the dignity of human life. And he has the goal to say, you human rights workers and church people, you care about human rights, I care about human lives. I almost fell from my chair when I heard him say that. I said, ano daw? Na parang human rights, does he forget that the foundation of all human rights, the most basic of all human rights is human life? He labels addicts as non-human and makes no room for reform for criminals. He says criminals cannot be reformed. We have to follow the law of the jungle. And I thought the law of the jungle was survival of the fittest. He said, no, the law of the jungle is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Which they call lex talionis. He happens to be a member of that fraternity in San Beda. Lex talionis means the law of retaliation. Okay, let's quote some very popular lines from him. He says, do not destroy my country, or I will kill you. That's why people love him. He is killing for me. He is protecting my family. And people are convinced about it. Who is he talking to? He's talking to those involved in illegal drugs. Addicts especially. Drug users. But not all drug users are addicts. Who of you is not a drug user here? Please raise your hand. There are two kinds of drugs, legal and illegal drugs. We're all drug users. But we do not all end up as drug addicts. It's not the drugs that cause the addiction. That has become very clear to all psychologists. It's not the drugs. It's something else. Find out about their lives and you'll find out why they're into drugs. He also says, I'd like to be frank with you. Are they humans? What is your definition of a human being? And he talks like that, and you do not expect us to say anything? I would expect at least the academy to shout and say, Mr. President, you're wrong. You're utterly wrong. No civilized society will agree with you that an addict is non-human. Where are you getting that from? Some people do. He compares addicts to zombies. He says, I think he has been watching too many zombie movies. Yung bang para bang, akala mo yung zombies nila na pag kinagat ka, magiging zombie ka rin. Ganun lang. He said, you must remember that those who are already using shabu for almost 1 year, they are dead. So if he talks like that, and they get killed, he said, oh, they were dead even before they were killed. I just did them a favor. They are living, walking dead. They are of no use to society anymore. How can we accept a statement like that and call ourselves Christians? You see the disconnect? You see the gap? And we call ourselves a Catholic country, a predominantly Catholic country. It is the new scarlet letter, drug suspect. You know, Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote that novel, The Scarlet Letter, A. Adulterer. Now it's D, or DS, drug suspect, or in the drug watch list. The labeling is not done only by the police, it's also done by the death squads. The difference is they usually government would label them before killing them. The death squads would kill them and then label them. Would hang cardboards that say drug suspect, drug addict, pusher, wag pa marisan. Death, violence, and the culture of silence. According to statistics, 78% of Filipinos believe that extrajudicial killings are happening in this country. And yet, 84% still support the president's drug war. Is there a disconnect somewhere? Could this mean majority of our people support the drug war, but not in the way it is being fought? I hope it's like that. Or could it mean that majority of our people support the drug war and do not mind the way it is being fought, which is through extrajudicial killings? I'd be scared about that. Meaning, they silently agree that the drug suspects who have been killed deserve to die, and that the violence is inevitable. Sorry, too bad for you. And there would be collateral damage every now and then. The day before they killed Edgardo Clemente, that tricycle driver, his name was Edgardo Clemente. The day before he was killed, 2 streets away, he was killed on 4th Avenue. 2nd Avenue, there was this lady, she was 31 years old, Dayan Cabige. And she was walking and she felt somebody was following, and not somebody, but a group actually. And then she ran, and they chased her, and then she entered a carinderia and went straight to the bathroom of the private carinderia of a private home. And of course the family was shocked, who is that woman? And then suddenly the death squads were in, looking for the woman. Where is she? Where is she? But the husband and the son were so scared when the woman came in, because she said, may pumapatay, may pumapatay. They also entered the bathroom. So there were 3 people in the bathroom. And then the death squad people, they entered the bathroom and saw the woman and bam, bam, bam. And the husband and the child were also hit. Collateral damage. Totokhang is also illegal. Tokhang, means tok, hangyo, knock, and plead. That's supposed to be what it is. Well, that's what it's supposed to be. But that's not what it is. They don't plead. They don't even knock. break into homes. They search without warrants. They arrest without warrants. They summarily execute. They plant evidences. I was just talking to a lady just about 2 weeks ago. She was crying, and she wasn't even a relative of the victim. The mother, she wasn't crying. She was just seated there, and she kept asking, who will now work for us? Who will earn a living? And how will I bury my son? She was mumbling things. It was the neighbor who was crying. You know why she was crying? Because she saw how they killed him. He was handcuffed. And as usual, they also declared it as police operation. But she was peeping. And now she blames herself. And now she says, I wish I had not seen him. And now she would need therapy, psychiatric treatment. How will you live with that? And you do not even have the courage to stand as witness in court to say, you know, he was summarily killed. And that's why they behave with impunity, because they know they can bully the poor. What do they care about fighting charges? They know nothing about legal rights. Yun lang malibing yung kanilang kaanak na binantay. That's already big deal for them. Kasi, believe me, no? After the killing, the problem is not over yet. There is a very notorious funeral parlor by the name of Virgilio. Sila yung nandoon, way ahead of the police. Yeah. I don't know how they know. They're there ahead of the journalists, ahead of the police. And then, of course, they'll say to the family of the victims, kami nang bahala, mag-down payment ka ng 5,000. You know, they're too disoriented to even ask about the rest of the charges. And before they know it, it amounts to about 45,000 pesos. That lady I was telling you about, you know, so I sent Father Roger, one of our priests in the cathedral. I said, Father Roger, may pinatay na naman. You run to the CMMC, the Kalookan Medical Center. Kasi baka maunahan tayo ng Eusebio funeral parlor. Ganyan na kami, parang ano, kahit patay na, mailigtas man lang namin doon sa overcharging. No? Yun na lang ang magagawa namin. So, usually, kahit patay na, dadalhin pa ng ospital, only to be declared dead on arrival. So, madadagdagan pa yung hospital charges, no? Tapos, meron pang charges sa autopsy, 15,000 pesos. Tapos, ang funeral charges, service, 35,000. Put that together, even more than 45, 50,000. Terrible. Tapos, Father Roger, you know, went to the hospital. And then, sabi ko, you look for the mother. Kasi apparently the mother is there. Para maunahan natin yung Eusebio. Kasi meron ka rin kaming Caritas Memorial Funeral Service to church for indigents. So says, para matulungan talaga natin. Pero mahihirapan tayo matulungan pag hawak na ng Eusebio funeral. So, Father Roger, you know, went to the lady and said, kayo po ba yung nanay? You know how she reacted? Sabi niya, hindi po ako pwede magpa-interview. Binalaan ako ng pulis, hindi ako pwede makiusap sa media. And Father Roger said, hindi po ako media, pari ako. And when Father Roger said, pare, Father, tulungan niyo po ako. Kasi hinihingan po ako ng down payment. Ang hinihingin down payment sa akin, 15,000 pesos. Saan ko kukunin yun? Pamasahin ko lang. Galing po ako sa Pandi, Bulacan, from the resettlement. Hinirap ko lang yung pamasahin ko. Tapos, saan ko kukuha nun? And Father Roger said, di bali. Basta sabihin mo, meron ka ng funeral service. Tutulong yung simbahan. We're engaged in absurdities like this. It's so absurd. Kahit yun man lang, matulungan man lang namin yung tao na huwag siyang tagahin sa punerarya. ay hindi pa namin makuha for funeral service kasi hindi kami accredited for autopsy. Ay, yan, sabi ko, this is absurd. Now, how do we know that they're committing illegal things? Well, kasi in the slums, the walls have eyes and ears. You cannot hide anything. Dikit-dikit ang mga bahay. There are witnesses. The story of Nanlaban and a counter testimony na hindi totoo, I've heard it hundreds of times. Not only does the government not admit any single case of extrajudicial killing, now it even gives subpoena powers to the PNP and the CIDG. Now they can subpoena the witnesses whom we protect in our sanctuaries. Remember when Secretary Aguirre was the Secretary of Justice, he threatened me because I was protecting witnesses. He threatened to file charges against me for obstruction of justice. Because now I did not have the right to protect witnesses, only the government has a witness protection program. Thank God, I was able to get the Integrated Bar of the Philippines on my side. And they were able to say a few lines to the media and say, the bishop is correct, the secretary is wrong. The bishop is not committing obstruction of justice. He is facilitating justice because he can accompany them to the court whenever they're needed for their testimonies. Paano bang obstruction of justice yun? That's why they harassed me in the cathedral, They surrounded the cathedral with policemen and wanted, me to surrender the witnesses to them. We've dealt with this. Parang, you know what? Sometimes I feel I'm like a shepherd fighting the wolves. And if I can get even just a leg from the mouth of the wolf, okay na ako. Kahit na hindi yung buo, just an ear, a leg, okay na. It's like that. It's absurd. It's really absurd. Even when the suspected killers are the police themselves, isusurrender ko sa kanila yung witnesses. The suspected killers have the power to subpoena those who have witnessed what they have done. The president also says, if they resist arrest, kill them. Criminals cannot be reformed anyway. But honestly, the more difficult challenge for me is when majority of our Catholic believers are also believers in the government's drug war. Diyos ko, yung labandera ko sa katedral, very die-hard. Aba, nagtatampo ba naman when I released a pastoral statement against the killings? Nagtatampo. Sabi ko, Duty, bakit naman nagtatampo? Hindi ko naman binabanatan yung idol ninyo. Yung issue yung pinag-uusapan ko. Tanggap ko naman na nakalal sila sa gobyerno. Pero kung naman silang gagawa ng bagay na illegal at immoral, issue lang ating Dodo. Sabi niya, Bishop naman. Masaya nga kami kasi tumatahimik na sa squatter kasi pinapatay na yung mga kriminal. So plainly said, kasi mga kriminal naman yan Believe it or not, about 2 weeks later, her grandson was killed. He was in college, the only one who reached college in the whole family. And she was inconsolable when I blessed the dead. Inconsolable. He said, bakit ganon? Alam namin yung mga durugista, yung kapitbahay namin. They entered the wrong door. Para bang, it's okay if they had killed the right man, wag lang yung anak ko. That's the gap. That's the big disconnect. Parang, it's okay to kill, just don't touch my family. But every now and then, your family will be collateral damage. Hindi pala yung anak mo. Sorry, erase. What is my approach as a pastor? My approach is to call on priests, religious, and lay leaders to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. Like what I'm doing now. Kasi my realization is that most of the casualties are unchurched Catholics. They are already at the margins of society, but they're also in the margins of the church. And that hurts me. It hurts me also that most of our parishes have become very parochial, so inward-looking, so focused only on church concerns. And when you begin to talk about ministering to the victims of extrajudicial killings, you cannot, mahirap kumuha ng volunteers. Mas madaling kumuha ng volunteers na magpagpag ng alikabok sa simbahan. But that, why do we get involved in that? Especially when I found out that most of the victims nga were Catholics. Kasi, you know, when the Tokhang was just starting, and I started hearing about killings in Kalookan, Malabon, Nabotas, every now and then I would call the parish priest. I'd say, Father, did you hear about, several people killed in your parish? And the parish priest would say, yes, Bishop, I saw it in the news. In the news. Father, you attend to them naman, ha? Sige, you update me later on. And then I'd follow up and said, oh, Father, nalibing na daw. How was it? Did you meet the family? And the answer is, hindi ho, Bishop, kasi they did not ask for a mass. They did not ask for a blessing. They did not come to the parish. Maybe they're not Catholic. Oh. Noong una, I took their word for it. Sabi ko naman, siguro hindi sila Katoliko. Why would we force our faith on them? And then one journalist came to me and said, Bishop, most of the victims are Catholics because I interviewed them. They don't even know their parish priest. Why don't you ask the parish priest to send at least, people from the parish to reach out to them? That's when I started requesting the parish priest to form grief ministries. Sabi ko, meron kayong Legion of Mary, di ba? Sabi ko, baka naman pwedeng yung legionaries. They can also visit the families of the victims and bring along some abuloy, a little contribution to the dead. And say, condolences po. Ito yung konting abuloy, pinabibigay po ng parokya. Pinadala kami ni Father ng parish priest. Ang parish priest po ninyo ay Father so-and-so. At pinasasabi niya kung kailangan niyo ng basbas o ng misa, just tell us and we will coordinate it for you. Don't worry about anything. Wow! Sabi ko, if you do that, I'm sure you'll get them back to church. The ones who know how to do that are the mayors. Mabilis sila. They send flowers, they send tents, Kasi bodo yan eh. Yeah, so I hate to say it, but I realized that our parishes tended to be inward-looking, focused only on church concerns. There is definitely a big gap between the regular church-going parochianos and the unchurched Catholics in the slums. When I took over as Bishop of Kalookan, I was shocked to find out that we had only 27 parish churches for 1.6 million. Sabi ko, that's absurd. We have to build more parishes. And so I started looking for chapels that could be converted into new parishes. And there was this very private subdivision chapel. Oh yeah, we have subdivisions also. Yeah, we have villages there also. But we have also the gilid-gilid yung villages. Yeah. So, when when I broached the idea that I wanted to build more parishes, there was this subdivision community that volunteered to have their parish declared, their chapel declared as a parish. And I was very happy. And I celebrated Mass there. And then I talked to the Homeowners Association. And then, sabi ko, very good. You know, since wala naman siyang rectory or home for the priest, I can just rent an apartment. Sabi ko. And then I will define the territorial jurisdiction of the parish. And they said, what do you mean, Bishop? And sabi ko, you are surrounded by 4 slum communities. I said, maybe if you don't mind, they will be part of your parish. And they said, you mean we will allow them to go to our chapel? I said, well, I suppose if they're your parishioners. Oh, Bishop, we will have to discuss this with the Homeowners Association. Sige, we'll call you once we've decided. That's 2 years ago. They never called me back. They want to be a parish, but only for themselves. That's why the unchurched remain outside. You know, the killing begins with labeling. I call it the narrative of othering. And they're very good at it. They would say, oh, these people, they are the ones we protect your families from. That's why you feel indebted. You say, oh, he loves us. He can kill for us. Wow. And many people agree. Some people agree loudly. Majority do so quietly. Some disagree quietly. Some disagree loudly, but they are labeled as dilawan, destabilizers, and they are outvoiced by trolls. Believe me, this government has no opposition. No more. The one this government treats as opposition is the church. And I don't know why. Hindi naman kami politicians. I don't know why they feel so intimidated by us. We're just doing what we need to do to stand on human dignity and the right to life. But labeling is also done by mass killers. That is after the killing. I call it cardboard justice. Labeling by the police is before the killing. I mentioned that. But more serious than the deaths resulting from the killings is the death of conscience. When people don't mind it anymore, it's the new normal. You saw it in the video. The death squads, they stop the traffic. They behave like traffic officers. And then the rest of the motorists stop and they watch the killing. It's the new normal. And then, when it was done, the show was done. And then the traffic moved. And it took more than 3 hours before somebody attended to the dead man on the street. There are no extrajudicial killings in the Philippines, according to PNP chiefs. And even the new one says, prove it to us. Because following Administrative Order 35, and this is a matter of semantics, EJKs are killings where the victim was a member of or affiliated with an organization to include political, environmental, agrarian, labor, or similar causes. Ayun pala, that's why they deny that there are extrajudicial killings. That if you follow the definition of EJK according to AO 35, there's not really a single EJK taking place in this country. Because drug addicts, drug suspects, they're not members of political, environmental, agrarian, labor, or any other cause. They're just dregs of society, as far as they're concerned. or an advocate of above-named causes, or a media practitioner, or persons apparently mistaken or identified to be so. And so, not included are drug suspects who are summarily killed by police in anti-drug operation or by unidentified assailants because they're not EJKs. See? No EJK in this country. No EJK. There are killings, but you don't have the right to label them as EJK according to law. So they can say it with a straight face. Am I my brother's keeper? That was the title of the pastoral statement that we released for the Diocese of Kalookan in October 2016, believe it or not. It's already 2 years and the killing goes on. As early as October 2016, we cried out and said, please stop the killing, start the healing. We were even trying to be very diplomatic by saying, we agree with you, sir, that drugs are a problem. Treat us as your partners. But there is a proactive way of doing it, sir, because the drug problem has to be treated primarily as a health issue because substance use disorder is a disease. It's a health issue. Count on us. We're willing to help out in rehabilitating them. That was our attitude. We wanted to help government. But please, for heaven's sake, stop the killing. We cannot rehabilitate dead people. Because the question that I hear in my heart is, where is your brother? A few days ago, I celebrated Mass at the Philippine Conference for the New Evangelization. And the Gospel reading was about the Good Shepherd. The Lord saying, I am the Good Shepherd. I am not like the hireling. The hireling, he's working for pay. He runs away when there is danger. The Good Shepherd is willing to lay down his life for his flock. When I read that, it was like a sword stabbed my heart. Because that very night, as I was preparing for my homily, one of the widows in our widow support group, who had just lost her husband the year before, was gunned down, leaving 2 children, 13 years old and 11 years old, now as complete orphans. And one of them was in our scholarship program in the diocese. Jennifer was in our widow support group, and Princess was one of our scholars. And the texter who texted me at 8 o'clock in the evening said, I am trembling, Bishop, because they are still here. They are still around. Why are the police not here? So naive. They are still here. If the police want to run after them, they're still here. They stayed for 1 hour. They were taking their sweet, sweet time. And after killing Jennifer, they moved to the next street and killed another one. And they stayed in the vicinity for 4 hours. So how can the police say they don't know? But they will say, killed by unidentified assailants. And they'd say, we had nothing to do with that. They don't know. I don't know why the killers are invisible. Alam niyo sa mga iskinita, sa mga slums, if you enter an iskinita and if you are a thief, it's easy to catch you because you have nowhere to run to. But believe it or not, the death squads, they come in groups of 4 to 14. In motorcycles, in black jackets, in, looking nice like Batman. And they terrorize our communities. They go in and out, they pass through police stations, they pass through municipal barangay halls, and they are undetected. And when the families ask for CCTV footages, the regular answer is, it was not working. That's what you call coordination. There are many partners in crime. Where are our brothers and sisters? Where are the victims of this crazy war? You'll find them in overcrowded jails. Some of them you will not find because they're still missing. Right? In the Botas, it's almost routine that they would abduct 20 and 5 would go missing. 15 would be in the police station. And they'll be there, for several days, and there are no charges against them. How can you hold people, without charges? And the families, they'd say, sabi po ng police, mas safe siya sa police station. Baka daw patayin naman kung lumabas pa. And the missing ones, expect that in the next few days, you will find a dead body floating on Manila Bay. It's routine. And the jails I've told you about, they're hells on earth. Nabota City Jail has a maximum capacity of 80. It has 1,200 prisoners. That's a typical scene. Typical. Because they're not human, so they're not to be treated like human beings. There's no use to rehabilitate junkies. And we talk to mothers who are looking for their children. And the police, if they go to the police will say, oh, nagtatago lang yan, involved kasi sa drugs. And the mother would say, di ho kasi kung nagtatago, kahit mag-text man lang siya. I was shocked when the photojournalist showed me the thick list of missing individuals in the police station's bulletin board. Sabi niya, Bishop, dati-rati, yung missing ay yung mga nag-Alzheimer o kaya yung mga bata na pasaway. But now, wow! Adult men missing. Ang kapal. Look, ang kapal. Missing. This man was finally found. There he is. His eyes were gouged. And he was stabbed, had about 35 stab wounds using an ice pick. But there are many bodies that are still unclaimed in funeral parlors. And I think it's probably because the family is so dirt poor, they'd rather pretend that they're not related so that they wouldn't have to bear the burden of having to bury these dead relatives. Our communities are regularly terrorized by people who look like these. And they would have assets. They call them tagaturo, like the makapili in the Japanese times. They don't even know who they're after. All they have is a list. And so they would pick up somebody from the barangay and put a mask on him. And they would say, madali lang to, just tell us where he lives. Tell us who he is. And they're afraid. Look at this man, he's sweating profusely. I think he's peeing already in his short pants because of nervousness. Because he knows that the person he's going to point at is going to die. Would you like to be put in such a situation? And the common justification is, too bad for him, he fought back. The result would be many widowed wives, many orphaned children. We're back to biblical days, the days of widows and orphans. We deal all the time with grieving mothers, or inconsolable spouses. Sometimes they have a name because I have the fortune of meeting them personally. Like the first time I dared to go there myself and celebrate the funeral mass, it was for the son of Luz Benita Siaco. 17-year-old boy who was handicapped and who was killed mercilessly. The group was, a group of 14 bonnet-clad men. And it all began with a little dispute between his son and the neighbor, because the neighbors were playing karaoke and they were quite noisy. And the son was saying, "Magpatulog naman kayo dyan." And they had drunk alcohol, And apparently, the neighbor was close to the barangay captain, and before he knew it, he was in the drug watch list. And a day later, he was abducted and killed. That's it. The boy is involved in church. The mother is a leper. That's where they end up. Kasi ng laban. If there were too many witnesses, even in a legitimate police operation, sometimes they would deny it. And they would put in the police report, killed by unidentified assailants. And the people said, "Hindi ho, police sila." And then, sabi ng police report, unidentified assailants. Because they were civilian clothes. They do it in broad daylight like this. This is very common. And the victims are dumped like trash, lifeless with torture marks sometimes, faces covered with trash bag, wrapped in packaging tape, tied like animals, with a cardboard hung on their necks, adik, tulak droga, wag pamarisan. Very common. And the children are exposed to this all the time. I worry about the violence in our communities. I met a doctor by the name of Dr. Gary Slutkin, Slutkin. You can Google him. He calls himself a violence therapist. And his theory is that this man is an epidemiologist, an expert in infectious diseases. But he studied the patterns of violence in Chicago and came to the conclusion that violence is also contagious. It is a contagious disease. It behaves like a virus. And so it has to be arrested from its onset. And they call themselves violence interrupters. When there's violence, you have to have interrupters, therapists, who would deal with the family and deal with the perpetrator and the people who witnessed it. Because otherwise it will snowball. That's what's happening to this country. It's snowballing. It's not the police who killed these two men. You know who killed them? This is now strong usap-usap in the community. They were assets. They were used to point. And they were identified by relatives of the victim. And he says, "Lintik lang, walang ganti. Just you wait." But these two guys had no choice because they were picked up to point. And now they're being blamed because they were identified by the relatives. And you know how they killed them? Slit their throats like that. In the most crude way. That's why I can believe that it's not only the police that are killing. Because you trigger it. Violence begets violence. Well, the early effect of Tokhan was the voluntary surrender of drug users and pushers, thinking that it could be the best way to avoid getting killed. Only to realize that the government had no program ready for them. Pinag-zumba lang sila. And profiled them and put them in the drug watch list. That's why many of these people who had surrendered are dead already. The drug watch list. The barangay captains are required to update the list regularly. Or else, if you don't update, you will end up as a drug protector. In Kalookan, we've lost about 8 barangay captains. People don't talk about them. You talk about, mayors and vice mayors being killed and priests being killed, but barangay captains are being killed too, and kagawads. And not all are because they are really involved in drugs. And so what if they are? So what if they are? May batas naman tayo. Involvement in drugs means you deserve to be killed. Did you, well, here, just so you know what the drug watch list is like. Ganyan. Yeah. It's a matrix. Sometimes may mukha, sometimes wala. And that's the barangay captain telling us that they're obliged to do this. They have to keep updating. The typical question people pose to me is, Bishop, are you not afraid? Ang sagot ko, they should be afraid. Jesus said, do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Be afraid rather of the one who can destroy both body and soul in hell. He also said, the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. That's why when Jennifer died, Jennifer, whom I now know personally, who has a face and who has a name and whose child is in our scholarship program and what lost a husband already, after being killed, I felt useless. I said, I have a confession to make. I am not the good shepherd. It's been 2 years and they're still slaughtering my sheep. And I have not succeeded in laying down my life for my sheep. Because I'm well protected. I live in a house with security guard. Yeah, I am not a good shepherd, I say. And I feel bad about that. I was really depressed that night. Good thing I woke up very early, made myself a cup of coffee. Every day kasi, my source of energy is what I call coffee with the Lord. I make myself a cup of coffee and bring it to the chapel and have coffee with the Lord. Have a heart-to-heart conversation with the Lord. And that particular morning, after a depressing night, the Lord, I heard Him say to me, whisper to me, Ambo, you're right, you're not the good shepherd. I am. I'm asking you to work with me. So, my consolation is I am not the good shepherd. Jesus is. I'm just a friend of the shepherd, called by Him to act in His person. I merely responded to His invitation to join Him in His shepherding mission for no other reason than for love of Him. Remember what He asked Peter, do you love me? Tend my sheep. If you love me, if you don't love me, don't even bother. Don't even come near my sheep. There's no other reason to commit myself to the flock except for love of the shepherd. Meaning, if I don't love him, I should not even bother to come near his sheep. I'm sorry, I used up your time, but I think I can end there already because do we have about 10 more minutes to wind this up? Okay. All right, let me now present the part 2 very quickly. Bridging the gap. My question is there such a gap? Answer, only if faith is simply equated with religion. The gap between faith and societal life is really the tendency to equate faith with religion or religious practices. Can religion sometimes be devoid of faith? Answer, yes. There is such a thing as faithless religion. Oh, there are even sick religions. Not all religion is about God. Some of it can be a manifestation of collective neurosis or psychosis. I remember my professor in psychology of religion in the Catholic University of Louvain, Anton Vergote. He was the first to say this. And I was so struck when he said it. Some religions are not really about God. Some of them are a manifestation of a sickness, a collective sickness. I said, oh my God. I said, that's right. The gap in the church between faith and life is indicative of a church that has capitulated to the existential gaps in the world. You remember the story of the rich man and Lazarus? You remember the rich man and Lazarus, the beggar, who was just at the door. The rich man was not oppressing Lazarus. He wasn't really doing anything wrong to him. But he went to hell. Why? What wrong had he done? Well, that's it. He did not do anything. He did not do anything wrong, but he also did not do anything good. You call it the sin of omission. And remember what Abraham is supposed to have said to the rich man in the afterlife. This is a parable, people, because some people, they don't have a sense of imagination, you know? They tend to be too literal, not literary. Now you start thinking that Adam and Eve, you know, and the apple, and there's not even an apple in the book of Genesis. Yeah. It's a parable. It's a parable. The rich man in the afterlife is supposed to have lifted up his eyes and he saw Lazarus at the bosom of Abraham in eternal peace. And then he said, Father Abraham, please send Lazarus down to dip his finger in water to cool my tongue because I am tormented where I am. And Abraham said, my son, I am sorry. Much as I would like Lazarus to do that for you, between you and us is a deep chasm, preventing anyone from crossing who might wish to go from our side to yours or your side to ours. A deep chasm. So I'm sure the young people here don't even know that. I mean, the word is archaic. Chasm. It's English, but it's not very familiar English to most English speakers. Chasm means a gap, an abyss. In Tagalog, we'll probably say bangin, agwat. The chasms, namely the gaps, that we have so efficiently established in this world. The chasms of apathy and indifference. The kind that would say, really, Lord? When? When did we see you hungry and thirsty and naked and sick and in prison and not attend to your needs? When? Tell us. The gaps that prevent us from seeing the needy. The poor in this country are invisible. We make them invisible. Society is organized in such a way that the comfortable ones will not see the poor. They will come from their squalid settlements and they will serve as your house help, drivers, gardeners. But you do not know where they live. Deep chasms exist between the church-going Filipino Catholics and the unchurched Filipino Catholics. Very huge gaps between the regular clients who come to our parishes and the majority who remain in the margins, not just of society, but also of the church. I've learned to accept that the church as an institution has influence only on 10% of the Catholics of this country. That's why they don't come to us anymore. They'd rather go to that, that religious sect that does black voting. Because if a bishop says, vote for this person, they'll do the exact opposite. Tama si Tony, what he said a while ago, We're not the experts in politics, so please don't expect us to be at the forefront for political things. We can be there at the back. for moral issues, for issues of faith, will be there at the forefront. But please, don't put us in the forefront when it's about political issues. Because I know there are many people that texted me and say, Bishop, you're so courageous. You're our hope. Why don't you unite the divided opposition in this country? I said, what? You're crazy. I said, I'm not a politician. Whatever it is that I'm saying because I'm a pastor. I'm a shepherd. Pastoral care in Kalookan, how the drug war made me realize that the church I was serving was sick. St. Paul calls the church the body of Christ. He says, as the body is one, so it is with Christ. The church is the body of Christ, a corporate reality. The implication of this concept of the church's organic unity is if one part suffers, all the parts suffer with it. In Tagalog, may kasabihan tayo, ang sakit ng kalingkingan. Is that true? Yes. Not always. Sometimes, ang sakit ng kalingkingan hindi mararamdaman ng ibang bahagi ng katawan kung namamanhid ang katawan. Kapag hindi naramdaman ng katawan ng sakit ng kalingkingan, may sakit ng katawan. And I must say, because we're not reacting to the pain of a big portion of our population, it means we're sick. We're sick. We must do something about it. The pain of compassion is really a good sign of a healthy body. If we're hurt, that's good. Pain isn't bad. Pain is an indication that something's wrong with the body. And when you feel it, thank God for it. Because it means that you have to do something about it. Indifference is what we must avoid. That is pagkamanhid, a clear sign of a sick body. When the societal and ecclesial gaps have become so wide and deep, there is no way that Diocese could even perceive the pain of the Lazaruses by the door. And so I end with a question of our CDCT pastoral statement, which was read to all of you. Are we to remain as bystanders when we hear of people being killed in cold blood by ruthless murderers who dispose of human lives like trash? Do we not realize that for every drug suspect killed, there is a widowed wife and there are orphan children left behind? Was Abraham right in saying that the chasm was permanent and unbridgeable? Yes, there's no way we can cross the chasm by ourselves. But I have good news for you. No, only God has the power to cross the chasm. Such as when He descends into hell, when He emptied Himself in the kenosis, the self-emptying of the incarnation, the passion and death. It's not true that when we go to hell, God will just be watching and enjoying Himself. My good news to you is, God will never send anyone to hell. We send ourselves to hell. And when we suffer, God suffers. And the good news is, only God can bridge the gap. I call Him the bridge. He is like the bridge over troubled waters, who will say, I will lay me down. I have more to say, but I think I'll have to end there. Thank you.
Let us have a moment of silence to think and pray over the points raised by Bishop Ambo. And allow what he has mentioned and shared to penetrate our hearts and answer this question: are we our brothers? I know you may have questions from this afternoon's talk, and now we open the floor for questions that you may wish to have or to share with Bishop Pablo. And we may also entertain questions from the previous talk with Dr. Lu. Sister.
I just want to share my experience about my My question, how can I
Okay po, sister. Very good. Okay.
Thank you very much, Bishop David. I am Sister Angelita Villarin, MIC, and after the nomination of one of our members, my church scholar, my companions in prayer, in Mary Queen, she was appointed by President Duterte to monitor the projects. So, I prayed to the Holy Spirit, how can we work together to help the government? And was trying to format my presentation to her. I said, she is a very good friend of mine also. And I said, can we do something, how we can work with the government? Perhaps we can have a formation of values for the workers. And right away she said, you know, sister, you are religious. There is a separation of church and state. And she was becoming already very different. And after that, another member was also my prayer companion, approached me and said, sister, that's true. You know what happened to Sister Pax? Patricia Pax. Do you know that, sister? And I said, okay. We really did not understand. I have been trying to tell you that Catholicism is not just faith, but also reason, grace and action, spirit and matter, and all those things together. There is always a unity. But if we are only praying and we do not find our brothers who are being killed, we have nothing to do here. But I said, okay, I will speak to you later. And then after that, I did not see her for more than 1 month already. That is the situation.
There is a separation, really, sister. But that separation is really a distinction of roles. The separation means the church must never put up a state, and the state must never put up a church. Because we do have a distinction of roles. But we both serve the common good. And that's why the church and state are very often partners in endeavors for the common good, especially for the most disadvantaged sectors of society. Because we cannot just sit down. Jesus, you know, one of the things that Jesus doesn't like is when his disciples would say, dismiss the crowd. You remember when it was getting late and people were getting hungry? The disciples said, dismiss the crowd. Send them to the DSWD. You know, Jesus would never say that. No, do something. Do something. Give them something to eat themselves. So, I feel sorry, you know, because I wish they could see the church as partner. But of course, collaboration has always been tense between church and state. It can be good collaboration, later on critical collaboration, later on it's just critical and no more collaboration. That happens very often. But like now, I'm working with government for community-based drug rehabilitation program. And which level of government? Local government. Government isn't just national government. There's local government also. There's barangay also. And you have a lot of people of goodwill in government. We can work with them. You know? So, sister, you're right. You know, we can find spaces for collaboration. But don't expect us to collaborate with the killings. You know, we used to have Ugnayang Barangay at Simbahan. But that happened to be associated with Roquel. And so they put it aside and replaced it with masa masid. Masa ayaw sa anomalya, masa ayaw sa illegal na droga. And they started popularizing the drug boxes so that, you know, you can just drop a name if you have a complaint against any fellow kabarangay, put that name in the drug watch list. He said, oh, we won't have anything to do with that. So we distanced from Ubas when it became Masamsi. So we know when to partner, and when we know when it's not opportune to partner with government.
Good evening, Father. The concrete question now is, what do you think we can do, you know, to bridge the gap or to solve it somehow? Concrete actions we lay people can do.
I'll just tell you what we're doing already. It's not much, but we're trying our best to do something. Like, we started our Salubong program, which is a community-based drug rehabilitation program. Because according to research, of 100 drug users with substance use disorder, only around 10% are really in need of in-house rehabilitation, which is very expensive. And it's usually not even very effective. About 90% of them can be addressed through other ways. Of the 90%, 50%, that means 45%, one half of the 90 can be addressed through community-based rehab, and the other half through counseling. And that's what we're doing. It's the proactive, positive approach. These people need help. They're suffering from a disorder. You don't have the right to condemn them and to say they're not human and they deserve to die. I'll say that to his face. I said, no, sir, you're wrong. That's illegal, it's immoral. These are human beings. We can save them. You know. And we're doing it. And we also have widow support groups. We try to extend scholarship to the children of the victims. We have a very strong restorative justice ministry for prisoners. Now we have to get more volunteers because there are too many prisoners. You know, we have a sanctuary program for people whose lives are in danger, people who have witnessed a crime and who need to be protected. Things like this. These are the little things that we are able to do. I don't know what you can do in your part.
Like Bishop, ako naman extremely frustrated and ako as a human rights lawyer na I've been doing this for 30 years and the last 2 years it was very, very useless. I actually had a group, convened a group called Manlaban, hindi Manlaban, Manlaban, mga manananggol lawyers against extrajudicial killings, and we're just actually quite overwhelmed. Actually now, kasi na-shock tayo lahat of the extent, we thought it was just a joke in the campaign, it was just a usual political promise, and then that's why I tell people, whatever President Duterte says about God, church, everything, you have to take it seriously because otherwise, you're fooling yourself if you don't take it seriously. I think the thoughts that come from his mouth or the words that come from his mouth are pure. I mean, they come from his heart, and you have to take them seriously, especially when they can be threatening. And because this one caught us by surprise, even when it shouldn't have. Because there was Davao, and I mean, for example, and we knew that, those of us who were in the union, we knew that. But now 2 years after, we do know, we just saw lots of things, just the way things are being done. We actually know where it's happening. It's not happening all over the Philippines. That's probably the problem, no? Because majority of barangays, villages, etc., they don't see this themselves because it's not happening. I don't know to the extent San Juan it is happening, but it's happening in many parts of Metro Manila. That's for sure. Kalookan, Quezon City, Makati. Those are some of the Manila, of course. I mean, portions of Manila. But they're very, very big cities. So it's funny because in the statistics, Pateros comes out the highest. But actually, it's not in Pateros after 6 months. And this is one thing that we can actually do. I mean, with local officials, you work with your local officials, your mayors, your barangay captains, at a scale that pushes them also to say no. Because Pateros has the highest number the last 2 years, but it actually stopped after 6 months, I think, or something. Because the mayor said no. And the mothers there, sort of women of Pateros, both the rich and the poor, they banded together. Sila ang nag-ronda paggabi to stop. Ganun din mga death squads din yung ano. But I think this is the evil at the very, diba yung talagang pinakamalaki na, it has to be also fought at scale, diba, with more presence. I think Bishop David's work and the work of the Diocese of Kalookan is quite incredible. But you can see how mahirap, diba? I mean, they're still fighting against all odds, and we have to support that as well. I mean, because if we don't do that, then what we saw in that video at the beginning, it will become an everyday thing for all of us.
Good evening, Ruben De Lara po. I'm a social development worker. I founded SHED, the acronym for Serving Humanity to Empowerment and Development. What I'm going to say is an affirmation of what Tony just said earlier about the need to call evil evil, and not to hesitate saying. And I was just confronted by that problem just this week by my classmate when he said, in calling out the attention of Duterte, are you not judging him? I said, I don't think so. Because evil is evil and must be called out. Because if I remain silent, that's how evil prospers. And so, our campaign, I think, should, and I'm glad that I hear the thoughts both from a clergy and a laity, that we should not be afraid of responding to the position, the blinded position of the loyalists. Because to them, when you oppose them, either you are a dilawan or a rebel. And I think, and that's why I wanted to ask Tony, whenever you give a talk and your audience are pro-Dutertes, how is your talk received by them? Because knowing how violent sometimes they can be and how unreasonable, how disrespectful they can be, because they're blinded to the loyalty of Duterte and the Marcoses for what we claim as someone who is known to be a renowned thief. You better be careful. Some people are saying you better be careful in saying that, and you must be prepared for the attack that you might receive again. So I'm wondering, Tony, how is your talk received by by the followers?
First, as like Bishop David, I try to be very careful about not making it personal. I mean, and it's sometimes hard, obviously, because a person who feel very strongly about certain things. Killings are the ones that are very personal to me also. So you try but you try not to be personal. But as I said, it's also very important to understand how we got here. And when I do that, I get cooperation. And oh yes, and of course I'm able to right away respond ahead of time about the Dilawan accusation, right? Because I can be as critical of the previous administrations to make sure to make the connection between that. But what's striking for me though, and that's why I'm actually kind of full of hope for almost everything now that country except for the war against drugs. And we don't know yet how to fight this. No? Kasi para siyang demonyo na nalabas, tapos parang ang hirap ibalik, di ba? Among all, including the people who are so different. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, and that's why at the beginning of my talk, Bishop was saying to that, the prayer is really important here, the discernment, asking question, but asking for intervention. Kasi this one needs really the Lord, di ba? And I think Bishop Vina is very clear about hindi naman tayo ang shepherd. The Lord is our shepherd, He will be the one to do this. But other than that, kasi the more political things, I mean, that we've talked about, from charter change to economy to ano, I'm actually quite hopeful. Because I notice with these audiences that I have, the moment I problematize it, right? I mean, I say it's a problem that we can solve together. People get engaged. You know? People don't get engaged. It's about blaming the person. You know, blaming the administration, whatever administration it is, diba? But when it's about, okay, there is a problem that in fact is real that has to be solved, then, you know, people can get together to do that. But you have to make them focus. I mean, and I think in the months to come, we need to try to be able to do that for many of our issues that we have to deal with. When dealing with, for me, the challenge for the killings, is that it's not just political, it's cultural, it's so, something got unleashed. I have to tell you, I mean, something got unleashed. Blame the president, the words of the president, the speech of the president, the overall approach. Then something got unleashed among people. I mean, this idea, for example, that our social contract is you know, we will have peace and security in our homes, but it's okay as long as, and it's okay for people to be killed as long as it's not us. But there's something evil about that, but it is the culture now, and I think this is where the church really has to. I mean, I wasn't able to talk about that last slide as much, but the lack of it for me, the quantity is a response to the church, because the last pastoral letter was very clear about that, and I think the church, our leaders in the church understands what we're up against. I mean, and I think that's really the part. The political part, I'm kind of confident that we're better off without the church as leaders, rather than, you know, sanctuaries, places for forums, etc. That's okay to connect. But other than that, I think there's people will rise up, and there'll be new leaders. You don't have to stick with the old leaders and Dilawan, DPS dichotomy. There's quite a lot of energy now that's going on. And I saw that when we lead into the sauna, when we're trying to bring all the groups together. But this one, I think, on the killings, we do need a church for this, because it's really about us and also our sinfulness.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank Bishop Ambo and the organizer na naimbitahan ako, or somebody who invited me over. Bishop, I'd like to express my gratitude for your bravery. We need somebody to stand up and to be really strong for us. Kasi ang nangyayari ngayon, parang pakiramdaman na lang na worse talaga yung nangyayari sa society. At ang pinakamahirap yung nagiging manhid nga ang konsensya ng bawat isa. Honestly, I cried when you were talking because worse na yung nangyayari sa society natin. And in my own little way, I'm a lector, I'm a CWL member. Kung ano yung magagawa ko, gagawin ko sa maliit kong kaparaanan. And tama po kayo na the visibility of the religious, the priests, lalo na sa mga communities, are very important. Ako po kasi nangangarap din ng isang pastor at nakikita ko po sa inyo yung pangarap ko na sana dumami ang tulad ninyo. I was the past parish pastoral president of our parish, and one time we went to a birthday ng pare namin. We went to a depressed areas, and I'm so amazed and I'm so parang sad at the same time. People keep telling our priest, Pastor, mabuti po nagpunta kayo dito. Parang walang nagtawag ng Father. Pastor, salamat po. Meaning the born agains are there. Our priests are not really going down and really being one with them. And sobrang salamat po kasi may tulad ninyo at sana dumami pa ang tulad ninyo. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much. Now we will, let's again clap for our two speakers. We are truly grateful for both of you, but we would like also to show our appreciation for you, Bishop. And we are very grateful for your insights, for sharing with us your experience. We are definitely now inspired to answer to the call to become brothers and sisters to the marginalized. Now may I call on the members of the leadership community, Pablo and John Gamet of the Christian Life Community to present our award or certificate of appreciation to Bishop Ambo.